Lovely. So good afternoon, everybody. This is our last of our Psalm classes. By no means the last of the Psalms that I would love to share with you, but I hope it's my desire that we are able to generate enough inspiration so you will continue looking into them. Every one of them is a jewel, and it would be really lovely if I inspire in you the desire of continuing with it. So before we begin looking at Psalm 126, which is the one that I want to go over, I want to say a couple things that I think are relevant at this time, since we don't live in a bubble. The first thing is to say that I just wanted to share with you that last Tuesday, I was able to participate in a demonstration here in Washington, D.C. I'm sure you all know about it. And that it was incredibly moving. There were about almost 300,000 people here. Apparently, I hear the largest Jewish demonstration ever. And not only was peaceful, it was loving, and everybody that talked, it was measured. So it was something that's remarkable to do. And I don't know if we are planning anything in the near future, but probably until then, this coming December 10th, I'm going to the state of Israel to volunteer for a month. So I'll keep you posted about that. There are many institutions. I was thinking of you, Christina, because one of them is called Leket. Israel Leket is actually a word that is used to gather. And the gathering is in the book, if you want to check it, in the book of Ruth, where she is actually a poor laborer, and they are allowing to have some of the fruit to come down, and so the poor could actually pick it up. And this is amazing to see that the state of Israel uses biblical words to advance the cause, in this case, of actually going and gleaning and harvesting tomatoes and strawberries and what have you. Is one of the things I'm going to be doing. I hope it's going to be great. It's going to be great, in addition to be singing at hospitals and schools and all that. So I'll be telling you about that when it happens. I wanted to come this morning, this afternoon, I guess, with something a little different, just to introduce, because I think it's in the minds of pretty much everybody. I'm talking about the 242, I guess 240 human beings, precious human beings that are being taken hostages in captivity. So what I wanted to introduce is by saying, first of all, some of you may want to look at Psalm 142 because it actually has some relevant information on people that are held in captivity. I want to recite this prayer just as at the beginning, as our wish of bringing them home. I'll recite it in Hebrew first, and then we can all say it in English. מי שברך אבותינו ואמותינו אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, יוסף, משה ואהרון, דוד ושלמה, שרה, רבקה, רחל ולאה, הוא יברך וישמור וינצור את נדרי צבא הגנה לישראל ואת השבויים בתוך שער אחינו בית ישראל הנתונים בצרה ובשביה, בעבור שהקהל מתפלל בעבורם, הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא רחמים עליהם, ויוציאם מחושק וצל מוות, ומוסרותיהם ינתק, וממצוקותיהם יושיעם, וישיבם מהרה לחיק משפחותיהם, יודו לאדוני חסדו ונפלאותיו לבני אדם, ויקוים בהם מקרא שכתוב, ופדויי אדוני ישובון, ובאו ציון ברינה, ושמחת עולם על ראשם, ששון ושמחה ישיגו, ונשאו יגון ואנחה, ונאמר אמן. And this translates as, please read with me, may the one who blessed Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Aaron, David, and Solomon bless, watch, and guard those missing from the IDF and the captives, among others of our brethren of the house of Israel that are situated in distress and in captivity, on account of the congregations praying for them. May the Holy One, blessed be God, grant mercy upon them. Take them out from darkness and gloom. Break their chains, redeem them from their ordeals, and return them quickly to the comfort of their families. Let them praise God for God's kindness and God's wondrous deeds for the children of human beings. And through them, let the verse be fulfilled, and God's ransom shall return and come with shouting to Zion, crowned with joy everlasting. They shall attain joy and gladness while sorrow and sighing flee. And let us say amen. The issue of people held in captivity is it's an issue that happens in Judaism quite a bit. In fact, we have documentation already from the time of the Middle Ages, where we have for a fact documentation that proves that many communities, many Jewish communities were enormously impoverished by the fact that they paid ransom for everyone, for every captive, and whether were pirates or anyone else knew to take Jews captive because the ransom to be paid was going to be was going to be high, and the Jewish communities will pay because, as you know from the Talmud, to save one life is to save the world. So the idea of having people in captivity is something very precious in Jewish tradition. So I want to just go a little bit quickly and give you some ideas about how is this connected to the idea of captivity. You see already from the book of Leviticus these ideas. The son of the Israelite woman pronounced God's name in blasphemy, and he was brought to Moses. Now his mother's name was Shlomit, daughters of Divri of the tribe of Dan, and he was placed in custody until the decision that should be made clear to them. And then a number of other places in the prayer book where we actually recite, happy is he who has God, the God of Jacob for his help, whose hope is in Adonai, his God, the maker of heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, who keeps faith forever, who secures justice for those who are wronged, gives food to the hungry. And this is important. Adonai matir asurim. Adonai sets prisoners free. And Adonai restores sight to the blind. Adonai makes those who are bent stand straight. Adonai loves the righteous. Adonai watches over the stranger. God gives courage to the orphan and widow, but make the path of the wicked tortuous. So those are just some of the elements that we say daily in our prayers, reminding us what? That if God does these things, secures justice for those who are wronged, gives food to the hungry, so should we. That's the chain that connects us, right? When we're talking about the relationship we have with God, we talk not that we have a contract with God, but we have a covenant. How is that so? The idea is that a contract, I give some plants to Devi's husband, and he pays me for them. And once that transaction ended, that's the end of it. We don't necessarily have to do anything together. But the relationship we have with God is more of the relationship we have with parents and with children, meaning we can do wrongly to each other, sometimes make mistakes, and yet our bond continues. We don't say, if you give me $20 to buy cookies, you are my father, and if you don't, you're not my father anymore. If you don't go to law school, you are not my daughter anymore, right? So that is not happening between our relationship with God. The relationship is covenantal, meaning what I just said, that we are connected with each other regardless of what happens. And then we have this dialogue. This dialogue through the mitzvot. So if God secures justice for those who are wronged, if God sets prisoners free, this is what we strive to do ourselves. And then we have these verses from the book of Isaiah that says God the eternal, who created the heavens and stretched them out, who spread out the earth and what it brings forth, who gave breath to the people upon it, and life to those who walk thereon. And I, Adonai, in my grace have summoned you, and I have grasped you by the hand, and created you and appointed you a covenant people, a light of nations, opening eyes deprived of light. And here it comes, rescuing prisoners from confinement, from the dungeon those who sit in darkness. So this is very powerful, isn't it? It's so powerful, actually, that this is the Haftarah. Remember the prophetic reading that we recite when? At the very first Shabbat of the year, Shabbat Bereshit, the Shabbat of creation. This is the one that we begin the year with, and we talk about this idea of, again, light, right? And what happens with prisoners from confinement? Those are, in fact, deprived of light. Who knows all these 240 captives in tunnels, right? Some of them, who knows, our hope continues, Hatikva, our hope continues that they may be alive. We may be aware that a baby that was 3 months old perhaps would not have that choice. So in any case, we know that the idea of bringing captives back is a priority. How much of a priority is that? Here is Maimonides. If you remember Rambam, for his iconic name, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, Moses, the son of Maimon, therefore called in English Maimonides, seems to be following the prophets Isaiah in proclaiming that redeeming the captive, and here's what he says, is the greatest mitzvah. Is the greatest mitzvah. We know that every mitzvah is absolutely fundamental. We don't make any differentiations. All of them are precious. And yet, Maimonides, who lived, may I add, in Spain in the 12th century and knew about what I was telling you before about Jewish communities that had to pay ransom for their captives, what does he say? Redeeming the captive is the greatest mitzvah. And he's even more explicit following the Talmud, the tractate of Baba Batra 8b, and the prophet Jeremiah. And he equate matir asurim, freeing the prisoners, with pidyon shvuim, with redeeming captives, right? The Talmud's and Jeremiah's language. So shvuim is the word that we use today, and he goes all the way to say the following, the redemption of captives receives priority over sustaining the poor and providing them with clothing. Look at that. Priority. If you have to choose between helping the poor and giving them clothing and redeeming the captives, you should choose the second. Why? Because indeed there is no greater mitzvah than the redemption of captives. For a captive is among those who are hungry, thirsty, and unclothed, and he is in mortal peril. If someone pays no attention to his redemption, he violates the negative commandment. Let's remind ourselves, there are 613 mitzvot. Some of them are positive commandments, meaning the things we should do, and the negative commandments that we shouldn't do, they're also mitzvot. What are these negative commandments? From the book of Deuteronomy of the Devarim, do not harden your heart or close your hand. From the book of Leviticus, do not stand by when the blood of your neighbor is in danger. And also from Leviticus 25 and 53, he shall not oppress him with exhausting work in your presence. Talking about also about the slaves. And that doesn't follow. To redeem the captive, he has negated the observance of positive commandments as well. You shall certainly open up your hand to him, right? And your brother shall live with you. Of course, the famous, love your neighbor as yourself. Save those who are taken for death. And other decrees of this nature. And he repeats, and let me say to you that Maimonides, if you have studied him, you're going to find that his language is the language many times of a lawyer. He claims that so he doesn't repeat himself. He doesn't. If he repeats himself, it's because it's enormously important. So what does he say? This is my bold. So you see it clearly. There is no mitzvah as great as the redemption of captives. And then we bring this other text of the Talmud. Rabba said to Rabba Bar Mari concerning this matter that the sages stated, that redeeming captives is a great mitzvah. From where is it derived? Rabba Bar Mari said to him, and it shall come to pass when they say to you, to where shall we depart? Then shall tell them, so says the Lord, such as are for death to death, and such are for the sword to the sword, and such as are famine to famine, and such are for captivity to captivity. Meaning what? Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah, if you remember, is the rabbi that tells us that actually experience what? The exile of the Jews from the land of Israel. What does he do? He buys a piece of land saying to people, I'm buying this piece of land because I have hope that we will return. And so he knows that to be taken captives to Babylon, to Iraq, that took us 500 years, and it became, as we will see, a bastion of hope. And the reason why I bring this is because we'll see what happens with Psalm 126 in a minute. And Rabbi Yochanan says, he explains this kind of like terse, but a little bit confusing paragraph, such as are for death to death, etc., etc. And Rabbi Yochanan says, whichever punishment is written later in this verse is more severe than the one before it. So the sword is worse than death. If you wish, say that it's learned from a verse. If you wish, say instead that is derived by way of logical reasoning. So what is he saying? If death by sword, this punishment mutilates the body, the natural death doesn't mutilate the body. So the sword is worse. So what are you saying? What are we going to do? And he continues that famine is worse than that sword. Why? Because one dies of famine, God forbid, suffers greatly before departing from this world. But that one who dies by the sword doesn't suffer as much, one could say, or not as long. Yes, the death is faster, and therefore, according to the Chachamim, to the sages, you don't suffer as much. And what are we getting? More fortunate were the victims of the swords than the victims of famine. That's the book of Lamentations, yes? And captivity is worse than all of them, as it includes all of them. It includes all of them, and therefore, it's a greatest mitzvah to bring them home. And it continues, and if they ask you, to what shall we go forth? Answer them, that said God, those destined for the plague to the plague, those destined for the sword to the sword, those destined to famine, for famine to famine, those destined for captivity to captivity. Remember, this is the verse that we were talking. And so Rabbi Yehuda goes to say to Rav, four must offer thanks to God with a thanks offering, and especially thanks offering, since we are getting into our week of what? Of Thanksgiving, yes? Of Thanksgiving. So therefore, what are the ones that offer thanks to God with a thanks offering and a special blessing? Seafarers, those who walk in the desert, and one who was ill and recovered, and one who was incarcerated in prison and went out. All of these appear in the verse of the Psalm, that we can actually is recited on Shavuot, Psalm 107. And Yodu l'Adonai chazdo v'nifleotav libnei adam. Let the praise Adonai for God's steadfast love, for God's wondrous deeds for mankind. And then ki izvia nefesh shokeka v'nefesh re'eva miletov. For God has satisfied the thirsty, filled the hungry with all good things. And finally, Yoshvei choshech v'tzalmavet asirei ani ubarzel. Right? Some lived in deepest darkness, bound in cruel irons. So I wanted to actually begin our session of today talking about captives. I gave you a little bit of some other psalms that can be of help to you. Psalm 42, Psalm 107, other psalms that talk about 118. And now I want to say that we are ready to look at our Psalm 126, and in order to do that, I will show it to you with the translation, and we're going to have a recording as I have shown you, because it's a short psalm that is so beautiful to put together. So here it comes. And before I do that, I'm going to do this again, so to make sure that I share the sound. Yes, and there you go. And we're going to listen of the beautiful, beautiful words of the psalm. It's coming. Excellent. I want to begin this by saying that Jews are a nation of dreamers. A nation of dreamers. How does it play? It plays by the fact that we always envision something more, something else, something that it has not been accomplished. And we dream and we look for things, and eventually, and we say, and most people say, this is not going to happen. And we do it anyway. For instance, think about the fact that what happens during Havdalah. Yes. What happens with during Havdalah? It's very simple. All of a sudden, we have a candle that has 3 weeks, right? Do you remember that big Havdalah candle that we light? And what is that we are told? We can't look at it directly. We cannot look at it. How's that? Because that is the symbol of what? Who remembers? The symbol of redemption. Redemption hasn't arrived, and the light is so powerful that it's like an eclipse. You should not look at it directly. So what do? We look at our nails, at the reflection of the light. We have been doing this for 4,000 years. We have continued looking into it every Saturday night. We actually do this. And you're saying, come on, it didn't happen, just stop. And we don't stop. Very good. So we don't stop because we believe that redemption is possible. And if we work hard at it, we will be able to achieve it. And in fact, what the Talmud says, something very simple. It says, if every Jew in the world would actually choose to observe Shabbat, all of them, all of us, one Shabbat, fully, redemption will arrive. It has happened? Not yet. But not yet doesn't mean no. It means not yet. So that's a dream. But we have other dreams. So let me show you about this dream. A dream that we also had for 500 years, and we never stopped. So let me tell you how that works. When we eat bread during the week, at the end of that, we actually recite a blessing called Birkat Hamazon. The blessing, we call it technically the blessing of the food, but it's the blessing after the meals. And you're saying, why after the meals? Because you know that the blessings normally happen when? If they happened before an action, for instance, right? We say Boreh, Peri Hagafen or Gefen, and we drink wine. And we say, and we light candles, and we say a blessing, and then, we light the candles, and we going to say Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz, and then we eat bread. So the blessing comes before we perform an action. But in here, the blessing comes after. So how so? Because in the book of Devarim, of the book of Deuteronomy, the 5th book of the Torah, it says, Ve'achalta ve'sabata uberachta. What does it mean? That you have eaten and you have been satisfied, and then you blessed. Since that's how the Torah indicates it in that order, the rabbis claimed what? That actually we eat and we have to be satisfied. If we eat a little bit, we don't have to say this blessing. Only if we eat. So what do they say? When do you actually do it? It's a little complicated, but basically when we eat bread, apparently that's a real meal. And if it's a real meal, not just a snack, therefore we actually recite. And what do we recite during the week? we recite during the week, Al Na'arot Babel, Sham Yashavnu, Gam Bachinu Bezokorenu Et Zion. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat. We also wept when we remember Zion. Right? That's what we say during the week. That we were there at the rivers of Babylon. And some of you even know some English songs that are very beautiful. That is. The idea is, what does it mean to you? I'm going to stop. What does it mean to you that by the rivers of Babylon, there we cried and we remember Zion? Why are we doing that? Why are we saying that?
We were captured and dragged there to Babylonia.
And you could have said, now I live there, that's it. Right? That's the end of it. But we didn't. We said, no, we're going to come back. We're going to be back. When somebody tells you there is any documentation about Jews living in the so-called promised land, in the land of Israel, in Palestine, is there a documentation? You say, look at Psalm 137. What does it say? We remember, and remember, we talked about this during the high holidays. Remembrance is a key aspect of identity. If we remember, we are something. If I don't remember who my parents are, if I don't remember who my family, who my big family is, if I don't have that in me, therefore, I'm empty because I have no connection to anything. And if I know, but I choose not to remember, it's like I lost it. So what did they say? Al Na'arot Babel, by the rivers of Babylon, there we were. You would say, oh, but the rivers of Babylon, aren't they great? One of the greatest rivers in the world. But no, we cried. Why did we cry? Because we remember Zion. We remember Zion, and therefore we hope that one day we can return. So that's the first dream, the dream that goes from Sunday to Friday. Here's another dream. It's called Psalm 126. And what does it say? A song of ascents, presumably, of ma'alot, of degrees, inspiring us to think higher. And when Adonai restores the fortunes of Zion, we see it as in a dream. In other words, it's Shivat Zion, to come back to live there, not just to go visit, to go live there. This is a dream, right? Our mouths shall be filled with laughter. Oh, it's going to be so great. Our tongues with songs of joy. Then shall they say among the nations, Adonai has done great things for them. Adonai will do great things for us, and we shall rejoice. And then the request, Shuba Adonai et Shevitenu. Make us restore our fortune. Make us return from our captivity, Shevi. Ka'afikim b'Negeb, like the watercourses in the Negeb, the southern Israel. And then something that we have learned, if you remember, we talked about Psalm 30, and what did we say? Ba'erev yalim bechi, in the evening, we will cry, uboker rina, and in the morning, we will rejoice. The whole idea, azorim bedima, those who sow in tears, meaning who sow the dream, who continue feeling. What did the rabbi say about the sowing? The sowing meaning we tell our children, this is, you think you are in the place, but no, you're not. This is a second home. The first home is not here. Azorim bedima, those who sow in tears, berina iktzor, shall reap with songs of joy. Aloch yelech ubacho, he will go along weeping. Nose meshech hazara, carrying the valuable seeds. Bo yavo berina, may he shall return with songs of joy. Nose alumotav, carrying his sheaves. Yes. So it's very interesting. This is the psalm that we recite on Shabbat. At the end of meals, this is the sign. I'm going to stop a second. It reminds me, of course, of all the Israelis, tech entrepreneurs, and so many others that paid amazing amounts of money these days, right? October 8, $10,000, some of them, one way, to get from Canada, from the US, from London, from everywhere. Where? To go back to the IDF. They were not even called, but they were there. They were there. We return. So I want to ask you, isn't this Psalm and the Psalm 137, the one that we were crying, right? Remembering Zion. Isn't that like enough? Aren't we now at the land? Why are we keep saying it? What's your thought? Any ideas? Any thoughts? The idea of Zion is a concept. It's not just the land. When we talk about the promised land, it's a potential of promise. If we're talking about a blessed land, it's the potential of blessing. We have to work to make it happen. When we say in our prayers, Oseh Shalom Bimromav, and we say, may God make peace around the world. Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, may God make peace among us and among the world. What are we doing? Some of us may say, how? Come on, why are you saying that? There is no peace. There hasn't been any peace. What are you talking about? What is it? What's this? Stop it. Stop it right now. It's not. It's a motivator. We say those words, and what do? We go out to make it happen. So the next time, if it's not the next time, the next time, and if it's not in 10 years, in 100 years, we can actually say that that's true. Because if God makes peace in heaven, right? That's the incentive. It's possible. Peace can be a reality. Peace can be possible, and we can make it possible, not God. And that's the partnership, you see. God has given us an image. Look at the stars. Can you see how bright they are? Look at the planets. As we studied at Agudas Israel during Rosh Hashanah. And look at the beauty of the world. God has given us a blueprint of what's possible. Now we go in. Now we go in. But it's interesting because there is another element that has to do with this psalm that has a little bit of history. The idea of Zion or Zion is referred in the Bible as Yerushalayim, as Jerusalem. Yerusha in Hebrew is inheritance. And if you can hear Yerushalayim, the word shalom is in it as well. So what is it? That Zion is the inheritance of peace, right? This idea of relating to the land of Israel, calling it Zion, as we do, is also closely related to the word for special and distinctive. Those who study Hebrew would know the word metsuyan. In Hebrew and modern Hebrew today means excellent. Metsuyan Zion. So that means that Zion or Zion is also distinctive and special. So very interesting though, that there was this whole issue, if you recall, during the Zionist Congress in 1905, they began talking about having an anthem. You're saying an anthem for what? By the way, these dreams that I'm talking about are not only one dream. For instance, the state of Israel had a flag, had a university, had an orchestra, had all kinds of different things before it became a state, right? And what is that it needed? It needed a national anthem. So in the 1920s and 30s, we had this whole thing about people arguing, discussing, of course, what is it that what should be the national anthem? And you'll be interested in knowing that this idea of the images for the land of Israel were agricultural. Let's explain. What do we know about the holidays? I'm sure Christina can tell us a lot about this.
Yeah, they're all based around harvest and the lifestyle of a farmer, pretty much. It's, connecting to God as to when his bounty is given. And, that was the majority of the people's professions back then, was agriculture. So it was the common people lifestyle.
What's the genius of the rabbis? They take something, right? People were praying for rain. They're praying for dew. They're praying for those things that are needed. And what the rabbis do, they give to all of it a religious connotation. So at Shavuot, what do? We call it Chag Abikurim. We call it the holiday of the first fruits. That's when we glean. And for Passover, right? And for Sukkot, what do? We create Sukkot to live outside in the agricultural world. So thank you, Christina. That's exactly right. Everything in the land of Israel is associated with agriculture. In fact, what do we do 1 year every 7? We learn the land to be
Rested.
Yes. We want every 7 years for the land to rest. It's a huge issue. Also, the land has a Shabbat, right? It's called Shemitah, if you want to go look for it. It's a very, very interesting topic, right? And it's also associated with economics. So if you're a slave, on the 7th year, you can go free. So, not surprisingly, what is the psalm talking to us? Let's remind ourselves, those who sow in tears shall reap with songs of joy. The seeds, the valuable seeds, carrying sheaves, it's completely connected to agriculture. So it's not surprising that that people thought that this psalm should be the national anthem of the state of Israel. And there was a great Chazan called Yosele Rosenblatt, who lived between 1882 and 1933. And he was a relative of Pinchas Minkowski. Why is this important? He was from Odessa. And in a film produced in 1933, when the last of his years, right? When Rosenblatt, Chazan Rosenblatt visits the land of Israel, he's seen performed a song with great pathos on a boat sailing the Jordan River. And what is this melody? I'm going to actually bring you back so you can see the text. And this text that he sings with music by his brother-in-law, Minkowski from Odessa, goes, Shir Amalo Veshuv Adonai Et Shivat Zion Shir Amalo Veshuv Adonai Et Shivat Zion Ainu Kecholvim Azimales Chok Binu Ulshonenu Rina Az Yovro Vagovim Higdil Adonai Lasot Imele Higdil Adonai Lasot Imanu Ainu Semechim Shuv Adonai Et Shevitenu Kafikim Vanegel Harazorim Vedima Verina Hiksoru, etc., etc. I didn't put my musician's sound on, but I hope you could hear a little bit of that. So this is the melody that was a finalist. Of course, you know what the answer, the end of it goes. It's not the melody that was actually chosen. The story of the national anthem of Israel is a story that is fascinating, and maybe one day we can study it together. The actual verses are more than the one that we actually have. It was part of a 7 stanzas, long stanzas that were written for it, and some of it was gleaned to create the national anthem as we know it today. So as you can see, this is this is how can I say it? This is the story of our dreams. This is how we did things. This is how we continue doing things. We make sure to dream and to continue pursuing our dreams, including the dream of what? Of making sure that that the captives come back to the land of Israel. And then it's not surprising that we also continue dreaming for peace. So what I would like to do is to actually play for you an Israeli song that just came out. I'm going to try to bring it to you in a second, just so we can all listen to it as an ending and as a hope for this this beautiful, beautiful 4 sessions that we have had. And let me play it for you. Just a second. I think I have it here. Just one more second.
When you write, your tone influences how readers respond. With Grammarly, just highlight your text and type how you...
Okay, here it comes, all right? Thank you for your patience. Let me see, to make it big. So it says the following. So the song says, the hours of fatigue that don't let me pass by, the heavy legs that can find a reason to move, the days and nights like the faces in the pictures, everything stops moving when you aren't here. And I wake from a dream and feel you are close, and then call out to you from the night. Come back today. I so want you to come. May you return today without announcement. I'm a tower of light that from the distance will appear again. May you return today, return without saying goodbye. I wanted to share that with you. It's obviously a brand new song. It's 10 days old. And I thought it gives you a little bit of a connection to this land that we dream with the land that we dream for fulfillment and peace. And that Bimerabe Ameno speedily in our days may find the reward of peace that we all dream with, that we all cherish. And also me wishing to see you soon at some point, discussing and dreaming other dreams. So Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Thank you so much for all your attention. May you be
Shabbat
blessed.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, and may you be safe and helpful in Israel when you go.
All of us.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm sorry I didn't see you at the rally.
Well, me and
I heard you bumped into Andrea. How wonderful.
yes, I did. Yes, and your niece as well.
Yeah, it was a very wonderful, emotional day. And it was so wonderful to really see that 290,000 people showed up.
Yeah, it's good. It's good, especially considering that it's so hard to bring everybody. And some people actually rightly feel that they didn't know that it was going to be as peaceful as it was.
Right.
Some people thought that maybe something, there was going to be violence, that something was going to happen. It was very well organized, incredible
Yeah.
how they did it to bring 200. I know of synagogues that were saying that they couldn't have enough buses.
Right. Yes, it was just really,
Yes.
as I said at our board meeting we had, I said, I've never done anything like this, but if I don't do it now, when would I ever do it?
Yes, like Hillel says, right?
Right.
If not
It
now,
was
when?
right, right.
So,
And it's amazing, you know, how, yes, so much of our Tehillim, our Psalms are about captivity and people are rising against us. I particularly have found 83 to be very, I now recite Psalm 83 every day, where talking about all the nations that has arisen against us, and God should do to them what he did to Zavuna, you know, all those other people. And I just find it very, it's in our history, and we do have to continue to pray for peace, and we do have to continue to have hope and never give up.
yes. So hope and dreams, retribution less, you know. Anyway,
Right.
thank you, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you very much.
May
Today
you
was
be
wonderful.
blessed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.